Hey there, welcome back to more Entitled People stories. In today's video, an entitled woman tries to steal her impounded car back from the police. She attacks a police officer and screams at my face. She claims that she has money and that's why she is allowed to do whatever she wants. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. When you work at a job that involves very little activity with people, I noticed that when I did interact with them, it was always the crazy ones. So I work for a lot that houses cars that are basically being kept by police for evidence. Due to the nature of the cars here, every single car is from there, and because of that there is some extra protection involved. There are employees like me that run the yard, move cars around and then eventually tow them to a different location or scrap them if and when needed. Stationed here are also a couple of officers that don't really do much but sometimes take pictures of the cars and report back via radio about new ones having to come and go. They are more or less there though for security, since the law here states evidence needs to be guarded by actual law enforcement, not just a random guy such as myself. With court cases moving slowly, the number of cars in here has piled up and it's a little bit of a mess. It can sometimes take an hour just to get a specific car that is needed out from all the other ones surrounding it. It looks like a mess, but it is an organized mess, so at least there is that. Anyway, I'm basically the grunt of the company, learning the ropes and doing a lot of the work nobody else really wants to do. My boss started out like I did, and I don't mind the quiet with occasional noises of the cars being tested by the mechanics on the other side. You can imagine how scared I got when, out of nowhere, a voice I did not recognize started talking to me. For reasons that will become clear, I will name this woman Karen. Karen, hello, can I get some service around here? Me, ma'am, you're not meant to be back here. If you have a claim going on, you have to talk to the officers at the front office. Karen, I don't want them scamming me. I want to test them out myself. Me, test out what? This is an evidence lockup and I don't know how you got here, but you have to leave. Karen, please, you're a nobody. I have money and want to see the cars before I buy one. I finally understand what she is talking about. Me, these cars are not for sale. You really need to leave now. I radio to my boss that we have a situation and I need help now. I can tell by the way she looks and talks that she is a Karen and not gonna leave from me asking to. She starts complaining about how the cars are so mushed together and how some are even damaged. Again, ignoring me saying that these are police evidence cars and she cannot be going near them. To my horror, she starts touching various cars and even tries to get into one to take it for a test drive when my boss and the officers show up. Police? Ma'am, get out of the car now. You're not allowed back here and you are contaminating police evidence. Karen, this is a free country. I'm allowed to see the cars if I want to. Another coworker comes by and alerts us that somebody had used a wire cutter to make a hole in the fence big enough to squeeze through. The police were attempting to restrain the woman, who was insisting that she should be able to look around and find the car that she wanted to buy. Then, to everybody's horror, she got out of their grasp and jumped into the first car that she could. That one sadly was not broken and could run, which was bad for us. Karen started the car and bolted out of there with it, creating an even bigger hole in the fence. The police called in for backup and went to go chase this crazy woman down. I was shaken up and wanted to just go home, but then she came back into the lot the same way she left, with police cars following her. When she got out and was tackled by police, she was screaming that she had the right to go for a test drive. She did not like that car and was saying that she was gonna try another one to see if she liked it. She turned around and managed to punch one of the officers trying to restrain her in the face. She had rings on that hand, so his face started bleeding and he had to step away. That is when one cop pulled out a taser and Karen fell to the ground like a lump of clay. Also, the screaming stopped, but my ears were still ringing from it. She was arrested for tampering with evidence, stealing a car and hitting the officer in the face. I was so confused about how this woman could confuse us for a car dealership, but I eventually got my answer a few days later. Like I said, two officers were always around, so we tend to make friends with a lot of them. We could not help but ask a few days later if they were allowed to tell us anything about the woman that tried to buy a car from us. It turns out that she was already in the system and somewhere in our lot her car was sitting. She had a search history on her computer with articles about how tampered evidence cannot be used. They could not give us details about what she had done, but that was the real reason she came. She thought she could break in and pretend to be a nice lady trying to buy a car and find and mess with her own. Then the court could not use it against her and she might get off easier. We all agreed that it was the stupidest plan we have ever heard, and it made zero sense because obviously she was gonna get caught doing this in broad daylight in front of police, no less. All she really accomplished was getting into more trouble than whatever she already was in before. She was facing charges for tampering with evidence for every car that she touched once she got in the lot. Plus, since the lot is police-owned, breaking in was a way more serious crime than if we were a normal impound or tow lot. I spent the next few days constantly looking over my shoulder in fear, even though I knew that she was not coming back and nobody else was gonna try and pull that stunt. I have no idea in the end what exactly happened to her, and the officers could not really tell us anything else. I did mention to them how she looked once she got tased, and they laughed about it. They told me some things that people do when they get tased, and that was an interesting lunch hour story. Despite having a job where I don't even deal with people, I still managed to end up with a Karen customer. I will say one thing for sure, and that is I never want to quit this job and end up in retail or something. I think if I come across another Karen, I'm gonna end up going home and never coming back. And the next one is titled, Karen employee turns my car into a wreck by backing up massive truck into my car and gets me towed. So I own a business and I ended up stuck out of the country for an extended period of time. Due to the pandemic, travel restrictions and business, it took me months to get back to the country. I was overseas in America trying to get some business done when the entire country shut down and I ended up getting basically stuck. I do want to point out this story takes place in Russia, and while it was after the initial wave of the pandemic, it was before all the other issues here started. Anyway, we lost a lot of employees during this time due to people quitting for various reasons. Some people who were scared of getting the virus while others got it and just never bothered coming back. I was in constant communication with the manager of the store who was basically running everything on that side of the world. Small shout out that he is a godsend, and without him I might have been out of business and destroyed. Anyway, he had to hire a bunch of new staff, and while I like to have a role in even the small things like meeting employees, I left things in his capable hands. When people needed the owner, he was standing in, and I could understand some regular customers and even staff thinking that he was at the top of the food chain. Even though I know that I would hear him tell people at work that he was gonna call the CEO about certain things, I understand they might not have heard it or been there. Finally, after getting back, I wanted to go into the market and see things for myself. I wanted to check out the stock and meet all of the new employees that were hired while I was gone. Our small parking lot has a small section to the side just for employees to make it easier on them. I find one of those spots open and park in it like I always used to do beforehand. The manager greets me and I have to go with him into the back to sort some things out. When we hear screaming though, we both run to the front to see what the problem is. Employee, who the hell parked in my spot? It says employees only and I know all the cars that we drive. Whoever owns my car description better comes to the front right now. I could not believe that kind of language being yelled in front of all the customers, so I go and find her before she causes more problems. Me? That's my car. I don't appreciate you yelling like that through the store, by the way. I would like your name and employee badge number now. Employee, I'm not giving you crap. If you have a problem, you can take it up with my boss. I will say that if your car is not moved out of my spot in the next 5 minutes, we are gonna have a problem. Me? Yes, we do have a problem. I want you to close up this till and go back into the office right now. I walk away for a minute to find the manager and see who this woman is. He explains that he hired her a few days ago and never saw her act this badly before. She did not understand that she could not reserve the same spot every day for herself, but thought it passed. She had just finished her training and clearly did not know who I was or the kind of trouble she was in. Even if I was not there, something like that would cause termination in the eyes of my manager. We don't want people going home and talking about how they went to our store and heard an employee screaming like that. We then heard a loud noise outside that we know belongs to our truck, but it shouldn't be doing anything during business hours. I go outside and see the employee in the truck, which she is not trained to drive and stole the keys for, ramming it into my car. My car was no match for the truck and got utterly destroyed and partially flattened. This woman was nuts and I was ready to blow my stack before firing her. Which, by the way, is kind of a weird phrase if you ask me. Anyway, then she had the audacity to come and talk to me like she did something perfectly normal and I was some kind of criminal. Employee, now you get the hell out of my store right now. You are hereby banned and if I ever see you again, I'm gonna have you arrested. Manager, stop it. Do you have any idea what you just did? Me, you destroyed my car and you think I'm just gonna let you leave? You have another big thing coming if that's the kind of thing you believe you can get away with. Employee pulls out her phone and starts calling the police, saying that the store has a trespasser. I've been trying to explain who I was, but she liked to cut me off every time I started to talk, so I decided to wait for the police to arrive. They took her statement before turning to me. Police, sir, this woman says you are trespassing and we're gonna have to ask you to leave. Me, that won't be possible. As I've been trying to tell her, I'm the CEO of this place and I own the business and property. I cannot be trespassing on my own property, can I? Police? Technically no. Do you have any form of ID so we can confirm all of this? Me? Absolutely. Would you like to go inside of my office and you can see additional paperwork and permits that are in my name? Once the employee heard who I was, she realized that she was in some serious trouble. She tried to come up to me and talk, but I put up a hand to finally shut her down. I showed the police into the office and when I was done, I turned to both the police and her. Me, you are fired for your tone, mannerisms and usage of company property illegally. Additionally, I would like to press charges against her for the destruction of my car. You have had this job for only a few days and already caused one of the biggest messes I've ever had to clean up. I never want to see you on my property again and in your own words, I am banning you from the store and I will have you arrested if you return. The officers did not know about the car yet, so I pointed it out and explained what she did. She was in serious trouble with them now for not only the damage she did, but also for driving the truck in the first place. You need a special license to drive something like that, and she of course did not have it, so she was driving it illegally. She then was arrested and the police promised that they would call and give me information for how I could sue her to get my money back. Luckily, I have a company lawyer that told me he would handle it, so I would finally get back to managing my store. In the end, the car could not be salvaged and she ended up having to pay to have the entire thing replaced. My manager kept apologizing for letting somebody like that get by him through the hiring process, but I really don't blame him. Crazy people are everywhere nowadays and in my opinion, the most insane ones can behave and act perfectly fine until they don't. Meeting the rest of the new staff went fine and some joked that they thought I was not real because of how long I was gone. I was honestly happy this happened when I was there instead of having her go after another employee of the store. The ban against her held and I've not seen or heard of her coming into my store since. She did say during the process of having to pay for my car that she was gonna sue me for illegally firing her. I never got anything about that, probably because nobody would take that losing case to court. And yeah, Ripe Stars, that is certainly a very confident and, or let's say overconfident, stupid employee. If I would work in a place like that, I would certainly be way more cautious and way more careful. But then again, who knows, maybe that Karen was on drugs or something. That's pretty much the only way to explain this. Anyway, if you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like the video because that would help me tremendously. And the next one is titled, I told a trespasser to F off my property. So I am posting this because I was told I would end up on Reddit and my kids told me this is likely what the person meant. So I live in an area that is seeing a lot of new builds. My husband and I have the last large lot on our street, lived here for 20 plus years and probably 800 people lived here when we bought our house, which is now 10,000 plus. It is about 1.5 acres and we installed a big play area a few years ago for nieces, nephews and eventual grandkids. It is on the opposite side of our lot, pretty far from the house, and there is a path that goes from our second driveway. It is landscaped and we purchased it from a contractor who was replacing some other park, so I can see how people mistake it as a town park. This happens often that people stop to play and I usually don't care, but we don't encourage it as we have 2 giant dogs who will bark at strangers who come in the yard. I put up some blatant signs that say private property and beware of dog. Right now it is still cold here, it's an early Friday morning and I opened the door to let the dogs out. They stay in the yard and ignore anything outside the yard, the dogs start barking and I hear yelling. So I ran outside and there's a couple and their kid playing on the playground. I call the dogs back and put them in the house. I go over to apologize and let them know it's not a public park. As soon as I get within earshot, the mom starts yelling, "What the F is wrong with you? We are calling animal control on your ass. Who lets their dog just run around a park? Get a fence." I hate confrontation, so I get a little shaky. I tell her it's not a park, it's my yard, and she says, "Get the F out of here. Get away from us." I point to the signs and tell her that it is not a park, it is our yard and they need to leave. She starts going on about how it is illegal to leave a play area open. It isn't, and it is illegal to let your dogs off leash in this neighborhood. It isn't yet again, but there are almost no bylaws here yet. I tell them again to just leave and they were not allowed to be on the property. My dogs are in the big window barking and her husband is screaming that I should train my dogs before they kill someone. They are bred to guard and detain intruders. Historically, we don't train them as guard dogs. This annoyed me even more than anything because I am an irrational animal lover. I called the police. When they saw that I was on the phone with the cops, they started shouting about me being a Karen and started getting in their car. Their poor kid was crying and the woman said, "Watch what happens when you end up on Reddit and we tell people where you live. So here you go, Reddit." My kids checked and didn't find anything about it here, so I will post it first and I hope she does post something. I'm sorry my dogs scared them, but the screaming and threatening was so over the top and honestly deranged. My kids want me to end this by asking if I'm the a-hole because I am old and I want people to get off my lawn. By the way, everyone is saying install a fence, but that would cost $15,000 or more. I have just contacted a company about getting a gate for our second driveway, and also where we live you cannot sue someone if you are trespassing on private property. Suing people is not something people can easily do here, and usually it's not for any big settlement. And before you comment about attractive nuisance law, it does not exist here. I don't want to say where I am, but it is not the US or anywhere close. And yeah guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this story. Do you think that OP is the a-hole or not? And now we will read a comment from Reddit. This person says, "Not the a-hole, I get that the fence is gonna be expensive, but perhaps you should think about landscaping your property line with bushes, mulch or trees or a combination. If you do it yourself a bit at a time to define your space. It does not have to be high enough to prevent people, but at least enough to show off your property lines to show that the playground is included with your property. You need to think about doing something because once you have your family coming over to use it, other kids will see them and think it is a public park. Or instead, just start saving for the fence." And guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, then please feel free to check out my Patreon over at patreon.com/ripeyoutube or join my YouTube membership program by clicking the join button to get access to even more exclusive videos. Thank you so much for your support and I will see you again tomorrow.